Why is it that in a world of unprecedented abundance, we so often feel as though we don't have enough? Why does the pursuit of more money, more possessions, more status, so often leave us feeling less satisfied, even emptier than before? This paradox sits at the heart of modern life and has occupied thinkers for centuries. The philosophy of knowing enough stands as a quiet counterpoint to the relentless drive for accumulation. To understand why we so often feel lackier as we earn more, we must explore the interplay between human nature, cultural conditioning, psychology, and the wisdom traditions that urge us to recognize sufficiency over scarcity. At the root of the issue lies a fundamental aspect of human psychology: our remarkable adaptability. When we achieve a new level of income, comfort, or status, our expectations rapidly adjust. This phenomenon, known as the Hedonic Treadmill, describes how our emotional baseline resets. What once seemed luxurious quickly becomes ordinary. The raise that once filled us with excitement becomes, over time, just the new normal. So we look to the next raise, the next purchase, the next achievement, hoping that satisfaction will finally arrive. Yet the finish line always moves further away. From an evolutionary perspective, this tendency is understandable. Our ancestors' survival depended on vigilance and the drive to secure resources. Those who felt content with little may not have survived lean times. But in the modern age, this ancient wiring can lead to chronic dissatisfaction. We are surrounded by abundance, yet our instincts tell us to crave more, to never quite feel secure or satisfied with what we have. Society and culture amplify this instinct. From the earliest days, we are bombarded by messages that our worth is tied to what we possess or achieve. Advertisements, social media, and even well-meaning advice from friends and family reinforce the idea that happiness is just around the corner, if only we had a little more. Whether it's a bigger house, a newer phone, or a higher status job, the implicit message is that we are not quite complete as we are. This perpetual sense of lack becomes a powerful motivator, but also a source of anxiety and discontent. The philosophy of knowing enough challenges this cycle. It asks us to consider, what if we already have what we need? What if the constant striving for more is not a path to fulfillment, but a distraction from the sufficiency that surrounds us? Many wisdom traditions have grappled with these questions. In Buddhism, the concept of tanha, or craving, is identified as a root cause of suffering. The Buddha taught that the endless pursuit of desires leads only to dissatisfaction, like drinking salty water to quench thirst. The more we consume, the thirstier we become. Contentment, or santuti, is seen as a virtue to be cultivated, a recognition that enough is indeed enough. Stoic philosophers of ancient Greece and Rome offered similar counsel. Seneca, the Roman statesman and philosopher, observed that it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more, that is poor. The Stoics practiced gratitude for what they already had and visualized the loss of their possessions, not to make themselves anxious, but to remind themselves of the impermanence of external gains. By focusing on the sufficiency of the present, they cultivated a tranquility that could not be shaken by the whims of fortune. Even in modern psychology, the concept of enough finds resonance. Studies on happiness repeatedly show that, beyond a certain threshold, additional income does little to improve well-being. The security and comfort that money provides are real, but only up to a point. Beyond that, returns diminish rapidly. What matters more are factors like relationships, a sense of purpose, and engagement with meaningful activities, qualities that cannot be bought or accumulated in a bank account. Yet, despite these insights, the compulsion to strive for more remains powerful. Why? Part of the answer lies in comparison. Humans are social creatures, and we often measure our success relative to those around us. As our peers acquire more, our own achievements may feel diminished. This endless game of comparison fuels dissatisfaction, even when our absolute circumstances are objectively comfortable or even luxurious. The philosopher Alain de Botton has argued that status anxiety, the fear of not measuring up in the eyes of others, is a defining malaise of contemporary life. The more visible other people's success becomes, the more acutely we feel our own supposed deficiencies. Social media amplifies this effect, curating an endless stream of highlight reels that make ordinary life seem lackluster by comparison. The result is a culture in which enough is a moving target, always just out of reach. But what does it actually mean to know enough? The answer is both simple and profound. To know enough is to cultivate an awareness of sufficiency. It is to pause and take stock of one's life, to recognize the abundance that is already present. It is not a call to complacency or stagnation, but an invitation to appreciate the present moment without being consumed by the hunger for more. Practicing knowing enough might involve moments of gratitude, pausing to reflect on the food we have, the shelter over our heads, the friendships that sustain us. It might mean setting limits on work, choosing time with loved ones over the pursuit of additional income. It could involve questioning whether a new purchase is truly necessary or whether it is simply a response to manufactured desire. This mindset does not come easily. In a culture oriented toward growth and achievement, the fear of missing out, of falling behind, runs deep. Yet, those who manage to internalize the philosophy of enough often report a profound sense of liberation. Freed from the tyranny of chronic dissatisfaction, they are able to focus attention on what truly matters: connection, creativity, service, and joy. Of course, the philosophy of enough is not meant to romanticize poverty or minimize the real challenges faced by those who struggle to meet their basic needs. For many, the drive to earn more is a matter of survival, not luxury. But beyond the point of sufficiency, the relentless pursuit of more can become a source of suffering in itself. At the societal level, the question of enough has profound implications. Economies built on infinite growth face natural limits of resources, of environmental sustainability, of human well-being. As the planet confronts the realities of climate change and ecological overshoot, the wisdom of sufficiency becomes more urgent. What would it look like to build systems that prioritize well-being over accumulation, that measure success in terms of health, happiness, and ecological balance rather than endless consumption? There are emerging models that attempt to answer this question. The concept of degrowth, for example, advocates for a deliberate downscaling of production and consumption in wealthy societies in favor of quality of life and environmental stewardship. The enough movement in business encourages companies to redefine success, focusing on meeting genuine needs rather than creating artificial desires. On a personal level, individuals are experimenting with voluntary simplicity, minimalism, and other forms of intentional living. These approaches are not about deprivation, but about reclaiming agency over our own desires and freeing ourselves from the pressures of consumer society. The common thread is an intentionality, a willingness to ask again and again, what is enough for me? Answering this question requires honesty and self-awareness. What truly brings satisfaction? Is it the fleeting thrill of a new purchase, or the deeper sense of purpose that comes from meaningful work or relationships? Are we pursuing more out of genuine need, or out of habit, comparison, or fear? The path to knowing enough is a personal journey, but it is one that can be supported by community, reflection, and the cultivation of gratitude. Consider the story of someone who, after years of striving for professional success, decides to step back and reassess. They realize that the long hours and constant stress are taking a toll on their health and relationships. They make a conscious decision to work less, accept a lower income, and focus on family, hobbies, and service. Initially, there is anxiety. Will they regret this choice? Over time, however, they discover a sense of peace that had eluded them in the years of striving. By defining enough for themselves, they find a life that is not only sustainable, but deeply fulfilling. Not everyone can or should make such dramatic changes, but the underlying insight is available to all. That the feeling of lack is often a product of perception rather than reality. By shifting our attention from what is missing to what is present, by questioning the assumptions that drive our behavior, we can begin to experience the sufficiency that is already here. The journey toward knowing enough is ongoing. There will always be temptations to compare, to strive, to accumulate. The messages of scarcity and inadequacy are pervasive and powerful. Yet, with practice, it is possible to cultivate a different perspective, a mindset that honors ambition and growth, but does not make them the sole measure of a life well lived. In the end, the philosophy of enough is not about settling for less, but about recognizing the fullness of what is. It is about reclaiming the present from the tyranny of perpetual wanting. It is about remembering that satisfaction is not found in the relentless pursuit of more, but in the quiet appreciation of what already is. So, the next time you find yourself yearning for more money, more status, more things, pause for a moment. Ask yourself, what do I already have? What is truly enough? In that pause, you may discover a wellspring of contentment that has been waiting quietly all along. The paradox of modern life is that, as we earn more, we often feel lackier. Yet this sense of lack is not an inevitable consequence of our circumstances, but a product of the stories we tell ourselves, the comparisons we make, and the habits we cultivate. By embracing the philosophy of knowing enough, we can begin to rewrite those stories, shift our focus, and find abundance in the very heart of sufficiency. Throughout history, sages, philosophers, and ordinary people have discovered the power of enough. Their wisdom remains as relevant today as ever. In a world that constantly urges us to want more, the quiet recognition of sufficiency is a radical act, one that can transform not only our own lives, but the world we share.